Bonjour tout le monde. I had a good call with Donald Trump last night again. We obviously talked about laying out the facts, talking about how the intense and effective connections between our two countries flow back and forth. We talked about some of the challenges that we can work on together. It was a good call. This is something that we can do, laying out the facts, moving forward in constructive ways. This is a relationship that we know takes a certain amount of working on, and that's what we'll do. One of the really important things is that we be all pulling together on this. The Team Canada approach is what works. That's where, putting aside partisanship, that's where I reached out immediately to Doug Ford to agree with him that we would have a First Ministers meeting this week to talk about the United States. Talked with François Legault and some other premiers as well. There's work to do, but we know how to do it. J'ai eu un bon appel avec Donald Trump hier soir pour rappeler certains faits et parler des relations positives entre nos deux pays et tout ce qu'on peut accomplir en travaillant ensemble. Ça va être un processus, évidemment, itératif à un certain niveau. On va continuer d'être engagé pour parler de comment on peut améliorer nos relations et assurer des résultats positifs pour les citoyens des deux côtés de la frontière. Une des choses importantes ici, ça va être de continuer d'avoir une approche équipe Canada. C'est pour ça que j'ai parlé à Doug Ford hier soir. J'ai eu une bonne conversation avec François Legault aussi. Je l'ai remercié de son approche constructive parce qu'on doit travailler ensemble pour défendre les intérêts des Canadiens. On a déjà fait ça, on peut faire ça, on va le faire de façon responsable. Merci beaucoup.
Non, moi je pense qu'il faut prendre ça très au sérieux. C'est une situation, vous savez, la préparation qu'on a fait depuis des mois va être importante. Moi, je pense que l'important, ça va être de rappeler que le Canada est le partenaire stratégique, le plus grand partenaire des Américains. Vous savez, on achète plus aux États-Unis que la Chine, le Japon, la France, l'Angleterre combinée. Et aussi, ce qu'on va faire, c'est d'être sûr que nous, on a toujours été là pour défendre l'intérêt des travailleurs, de l'industrie. C'est ce qu'on va faire. Vous savez, on a déjà été là, on est préparé, et puis c'est sûr qu'on sera là pour défendre les intérêts du Canada.
Est-ce qu'il y a une fenêtre pour que le Canada soit exempté, d'après vous, d'ici le 20 janvier?
Bien, écoutez, c'est... Comme vous le dites, il y a quand même une période. Hein? Le président Trump, l'inauguration, ce sera au mois de janvier. On a 2 mois devant nous. Et je peux vous dire qu'on est déjà en contact avec des partenaires américains pour être sûr de faire valoir l'exceptionnalité de la relation canadienne. Parce qu'il faut savoir qu'une décision comme celle-là aurait un impact économique important aux États-Unis aussi. Et c'est pour ça qu'on va travailler avec nos partenaires américains, comme on le fait déjà, pour rappeler l'importance stratégique de cette relation.
M. Trump brandit comme argument l'immigration puis l'entrée de drogue comme le fentanyl. Qu'est-ce que vous faites de ces arguments-là qui justifient, selon lui, les tarifs?
Bien, moi, je dis toujours, la priorité, ça a toujours été de protéger la frontière canadienne. Moi, je pense qu'il faut éviter de faire des amalgames entre les frontières au niveau du Mexique et du Canada. Les forces responsables, les forces de l'ordre sont présentes sur la frontière. On a une posture qui est adaptée à la réalité de ce qu'on est en train de voir. Et certainement, on a un intérêt commun. Vous savez, l'intérêt commun pour nous, c'est de dire, travaillons ensemble. Il y a un intérêt commun à protéger les frontières, à arrêter ce trafic-là qu'on peut constater. Alors, c'est pour ça...
Il y a raison de soulever que c'est un enjeu, M.
Bien, écoutez, ce qu'on dit, c'est qu'on comprend leurs préoccupations. Et nous, ce qu'on va faire, c'est qu'on dit, on est votre meilleur allié. Il n'y a pas de différence dans la vue de dire protégeons nos frontières. On est tout à fait...
On met dans le même panier que le Mexique, non?
Bien, c'est ça, je pense qu'il faut faire. Nous, ce qu'on va mettre de l'avant certainement, c'est de dire ne faisons pas d'amalgame. La frontière canadienne, elle fonctionne depuis des décennies, même voire plus qu'un siècle. On est très conscient qu'on doit protéger cette frontière-là. On le fait, mais on le fait en partenariat en plus. Vous avez vu dans les déclarations qu'on a fait hier, suite à la réunion du cabinet Canada-États-Unis, on disait on travaille déjà avec les agences américaines, donc on travaille main dans la main et c'est dans l'intérêt commun d'arriver, c'est sûr, pour protéger et s'assurer qu'on a une frontière qui fonctionne bien des deux côtés.
Comment est-ce que vous faites ça sans vous aliéner le Mexique, avec qui on a un pacte trilatéral?
C'est sûr, mais là, je pense que l'important pour nous, ça va être de défendre les intérêts de l'industrie canadienne, les intérêts des travailleurs canadiens. Et certainement, moi, je pense qu'il ne faut pas faire d'amalgame entre les deux frontières, et ce sera certainement quelque chose qu'on mettra de l'avant.
Mr. Champagne, do you see this as a bargaining tactic, or do you think we're really going to see 26% or 25% tariffs?
Listen, what I can do is that, we have to take that seriously, there's no doubt. On the other hand, I would say the preparation that we've done is going to be material in our discussions.
But it's an executive order.
Yeah, well, we have had a number of discussions. We'll continue to have. President Trump is not president for 2 months, so we still have, a number of weeks to engage. We'll make sure that everything that we have said about the strategic nature of our relationship, about security, supply chain resiliency, and making sure that they understand that this would have an impact on the U.S. economy if you just think about the energy sector in particular. So we're going to be making sure of that. And bottom line, we'll do like we always do. We'll stand up for Canada. We'll stand up for the workers. We'll stand up for our industry.
React to Trump threat with tariffs and what it might mean for Canada's energy exports?
Canada and the U.S. have had a integrated energy market for a long time. That's not just oil and gas, that's hydroelectricity that feeds New York and Boston. It's potash that feeds people across the United States. It's uranium that powers nuclear facilities. So I think we have always had a market that benefits both sides. I look forward to working with the two nominees that are focused on energy once they are in place and focusing on mutual benefits. I would just say both of those folks actually have significant experience with Canada, and that's a good thing.
What is comme impact un tarif de 25% sur le Canada, sur l'économie, particulièrement sur le plan énergétique?
Comme j'ai dit, nous devons avoir les conversations avec l'administration Trump et particulièrement avec mes homologues qui ne sont pas en place maintenant. Mais dans le secteur d'énergie, bien sûr le secteur de pétrole et gaz naturel, mais aussi l'hydroélectricité et les minéraux critiques, il y a beaucoup de choses qui sont dans l'intérêt des deux pays. Et je crois que nous devons avoir les conversations. Et je suis très ouvert d'avoir ces conversations.
Parlez-nous de la dépendance des Américains sur
social whatever thing you did.
I've certainly had lots of conversations with industry leaders before yesterday, and I intend to have conversations with my provincial counterparts and with industry going forward to ensure that we're working as a Team Canada on a Team Canada approach to address the concerns that the Trump administration is expressing.
Do you think do Americans understand how much is allowing too many migrants into the United States?
Look, I think first and foremost, we want to look out for the interest of the Canadian economy, Canadian businesses, and Canadian workers. We've got a heavily integrated supply chain with a lot of north-south trade that goes on with literally dozens of U.S. states, with Canada as their top trading partner. We're going to be working to make sure that we can solve whatever challenges we may have with the United States. We've had challenges before, we'll have challenges again, but they are a long-standing ally, and we're going to do what we can to work through these kinds of challenges to ensure we protect the interests of Canadians.
When are Canadians going to see your government's plan? When are Canadians going to see your government's plan for dealing with the new Trump presidency? It went from 10% tariffs to now a threat of 25% tariffs.
Look, I'll point to Minister Ng, who I expect you're going to have an opportunity to chat with today for details on the Government of Canada's policy. Right now, we want to make sure that we reach out to our contacts in the United States, political, but also the people-to-people connections that we have. This is a time, I think, to demonstrate the importance of continued bilateral trade relationship, and we'll look forward to helping grow our economies together.
Are we the migrant issue?
Juste en français là-dessus, est-ce que vous avez l'impression que ce que fait M. Trump en ce moment, c'est du bluff?
Ce n'est pas pour moi du nombre de stratégies des États-Unis. C'est pour moi de protéger l'intérêt de notre économie dans notre pays. Selon moi, c'est essentiel pour engager avec les États-Unis, pour augmenter l'économie dans une façon qui soutenir des familles canadiennes, des travailleurs canadiens. C'est très important pour engager très vite avec nos partenaires dans les États-Unis.
Pas encore président et qui va faire ça, considérant que M. Trump n'est pas encore président et il dit qu'il va faire les tarifs le jour 1. Est-ce que vous avez de l'espace pour négocier en ce moment?
Toujours, je pense que le Canada a l'espace pour négocier des solutions à tous les enjeux. C'est très important. Quand nous avons un partenaire stratégique important, il est essentiel à chaque jour de continuer les négociations, les partenariats pour augmenter l'économie dans les deux côtés de la frontière.
What do you
C'est
make
OK?
of I'm just trying to understand, since Trump is not yet president, how can you navigate in negotiating this that's supposed to enter on day one?
So, look, we have an administration that exists today. Business continues in the United States. We have an administration that will be coming in. There are relationships that exist not just as between governments, but as between peoples, as between the business community, as between governments with those groups within each other's borders. This is an extremely important time to continue to engage with our partners, not just as between governments, but also as between peoples and as between economies.
What do you make of his claims equating immigration from the southern border to immigration from the northern border?
Well, I think it's important to look at the numbers. We're dealing with the situation in the U.S. southern border that sometimes has seen in excess of 2 million migrants cross in an irregular way, according to some of the conversations that I've had with Secretary Mayorkas. It's not a similar comparator, but I do think Canadians and Americans on both sides of the border want to ensure that they have strengthened borders and that promotes integrity, but also allows for the free flow of the people who power our economy, the trade between businesses on both sides of the border. So these are the kinds of issues that we work through, but I think we have conversations that we will inevitably have with the United States that are independent of some of the challenges they're facing on the southern border. Okay, I'm going to end the meeting. You guys can catch me on the way.
The north-south flow of people coming in from Canada into the U.S., just as we've had concern with the U.S. of the flow of people coming from the south to the north. So we have shared interests in here in making it something that is manageable and controlled, and those that are not authorized to cross the border are promptly returned pursuant to the Safe Third Country Agreement. So,
are you planning to deploy more officers than you are?
Look, it is a, in comparison to the border with Mexico, it's the equivalent on a yearly basis of a significant weekend at the Mexico border, but it's not something that at the same time I want to not take seriously, because it is serious, and we have a job not to make our problems the Americans' problems, and they have a job not to make their problems ours.
Will you consider new measures? Will you consider new measures in light of last night's announcement, maybe around the Safe Third Country Agreement, or others new measures in light of last night's announcement?
There's a number of measures that we are considering in any event, regardless of what the incoming administration would have been. Clearly, this will be part of a discussion that we'll have with the Americans when we have an opportunity to sit down with them.
Hier, il y a le chef conservateur et le chef bloquiste qui ont tous deux, pour commenter les manifestations en fin de semaine qui ont débordé, parlé d'une immigration qui importait ces problèmes ici et qui devrait peut-être être déportée si elle cause des grabuges. Qu'est-ce que vous avez pensé de ces commentaires-là?
Bien, écoutez, moi, j'en ai franchement ras-le-bol de ce genre de global intifada qui fait l'apologie du Hamas. Ça m'écoeure au plus haut point. On est dans un pays où les gens ont le droit de manifester, mais pas de faire du tapage, de s'attaquer à la police, à des individus qui n'ont rien à voir avec la situation, à s'attaquer aux Juifs, à propager la haine. Et puis, il y a des limites. Écoutez, prenez par exemple ce qui se passe dans la ville de New York. Il y a des permis qui s'octroient pour avoir des manifestations. Ça ne se fait pas à Montréal. Ce serait peut-être une idée de pouvoir contrôler ce genre de manifestations. Mais c'est aller, je pense, hors de toutes les normes de décence.
Mais on n'est pas en train de stigmatiser. Quelle preuve a-t-on que ce sont des immigrants, en fait?
Je l'ignore. Évidemment, je l'ignore. Puis je pense que de tout mettre sur le dos des immigrants... Moi, j'ai vu beaucoup de gens dans les manifestations quand j'ai été à côté. Je présume, quand j'étais accosté, qui étaient manifestement des citoyens canadiens.
Oui, mais d'où ma question. Est-ce qu'on n'est pas allé trop loin?
Je ne sais pas ce qu'ils ont dit. Il faudrait que je regarde ce qu'ils ont dit.
Are you planning to deploy more RCP officers at the New York-Vermont border where we're seeing the most illegal crossings?
Again, this is a question that will be dealt with the Minister of Public Safety. We're looking at a number of measures, and this absolutely includes additional resources.
Sur les tarifs de vous avez l'impression que ce que M. Trump avance, là, notamment le fentanyl et l'immigration illégale, c'est un prétexte?
Bien, si c'est un prétexte qu'il faut prendre au sérieux. Et évidemment, un tarif de 25 % ça a la capacité de faire du mal au Canada. Ça va faire du mal aux Américains aussi. Donc, ils sont en train, avec nos économies qui sont intégrées, ils vont se tirer dans le pied, puis à répétition d'ailleurs. Mais c'est clair qu'il va falloir s'asseoir avec eux, le prendre au sérieux, puis démontrer s'ils ont des soucis à ce qui a trait à la gestion de la frontière, qu'on fait notre job de notre bord de la frontière. Moi, j'ai aussi des revendications aussi pour eux, en ce que de la façon dont ils gèrent leurs propres frontières. Et c'est dans la nature de toute relation où les gens transgisent.
Qu'est-ce que vous voulez dire?
Il faut choisir la première.
Est-ce que peut-être qu'il y a un mandat pour le Canada de changer leur mandat un petit peu, voyant que, surtout dans les villes, il y a beaucoup de monde qui disent qu'il ne manque pas Post Canada, malgré le fait que les personnes des communautés rurales, je pense qu'il manque plus. Mais est-ce que peut-être il y a un moment pour Canada Post de changer leur mandat un petit peu?
Bien, le ministre McKinnon, évidemment, est le ministre en charge de ces relations entre le syndicat des postiers et Poste Canada. C'est M. McKinnon a nommé un médiateur spécial il y a quelques jours à peine. Ce médiateur spécial est là pour aider et même encourager les parties à travailler ensemble. On sait que c'est inquiétant pour beaucoup de gens au Canada qui ont besoin des services postaux, y compris en milieu rural et éloigné, et pour les PME aussi. Donc,
on the $250 checks, can you please clarify if the government is open to expanding the $250 checks to more Canadians beyond working Canadians?
I think Minister Freedom has been quite clear on that this is, and Minister Gould as well. They'll provide more clarifications if you need to have them.
Sorry, they haven't been. I'm wondering.
No,
I think you were.
I'm
I think
sure
you were
they have
on the
been, but we'll
shows.
be
I think
happy
on CTV last night you said you are open to expanding the check to other people like seniors, as the Bloc are demanding, or like students. Can you clarify if that's the case?
That's what I said last night. What I said last night is something that I think most people understand. We are in a minority government, so any help we would and could be sending to Canadians requires the support of an opposition party, and that's therefore why we need to work with them to see what is possible and feasible in a minority government.
And can we afford it? Can the government afford it?
Sur les tarifs de M. Trump, premièrement, quelle est votre réaction? Puis deuxièmement, qu'est-ce que vous pensez?
Minister, what will you do with the oil and gas industry? Poilievre is calling for the elimination of the emissions cap and obviously the carbon price. He's saying this is kneecapping industry should a tariff come in. What's your response to that?
Mr. Poilievre should actually think a little bit more logically. We need to work with the Americans on oil and gas and ensure that we're actually continuing to actually export to the United States. That's important for the Americans. It's important for Canada. That's true of hydroelectricity. It's true of critical minerals. It's true of potash. But here in Canada, we actually need to ensure a robust industry that also does its part to reduce carbon emissions. No sector gets a pass. It's important we do it in a thoughtful way. And if Mr. Poilievre took the time to look at the emissions cap, he would actually see that we expect production to increase significantly over the next number of years.
Is your government open to expanding the $250 check program in light of the demands from the Bloc and the NDP, as well as members of your own caucus now?
I think that the Minister of Finance has put forward a proposal in terms of how we're responding on affordability, and I think if you want more details, you should talk to her.
What's the plan going forward, though, to protect the oil and gas industry from 25% tariffs?
Well, I mean, obviously we have a committee that was set up that was meeting last night when President Trump, or President-elect Trump, made his statement. Obviously, we're thinking about how we best communicate with the Americans. That includes ensuring that the Americans that benefit from trade with Canada are actually speaking to Americans in the White House. So we are thinking very clearly, and we're actually going to be working with provinces and territories and industry in Canada on a Team Canada approach to ensure that we actually are best representing our interests.
What measures, though, aside from just having conversations with the U.S.?
Well, at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is that we actually understand that the trade is mutually beneficial. You know, if you think about oil that's exported to the United States, a lot of it is heavy crude. The refineries there are set up to process heavy crude. If they don't have access to Canadian crude or it's much more expensive, their alternative is crude from Venezuela or Mexico. I'm not sure that's in the long-term interests of either Canada or the United States.
Do you think it's bluster from Trump?
No, I think President Trump wants to ensure that he's effectively representing American interests. My job is to represent Canadian interests.
What's your plan to deal with the U.S.? Do you think this is a real threat?
Well, I think we need to take that seriously and methodically. I think that's what you're saying as a response, seriously, because everything that President-elect Trump says we should take seriously. On the other end, we're going to address that very methodically, in the sense that we've been engaging, as you know, with our U.S. partners for a number of weeks now, if not months. We're going to put forward all the arguments that one can imagine, because we're the largest trading partner. Actually, we remind them that we buy more from the United States than China, Japan, the UK, and France combined, and also that we have built now strategic supply chains, so that a decision on one side of the border would have an impact on both sides of the border. And so that's why we're going to do as we always do. We're going to defend Canadian industry, Canadian workers, and we're engaging, and we're going to continue to engage, because, as you know, we have time ahead of us to make sure that we put forward all the arguments. And I think you need to distinguish when it comes, we have common interests. If you look at, protecting the border, obviously that's a joint interest. Interdicting fentanyl to enter in North America, that's we are on the same page. So our point will be, we are on the same page. We're working already very actively with U.S. authorities. Let's double down on that, and at the same time, let's make sure that we have the best trading relationship that we can have.
Mexico says that they're going to retaliate. Mexico says that they're going to retaliate. Will Canada retaliate?
Listen, we're not. I would say let's take things step by step. Like I said, we need to be methodical. We've always been. We've been there before. My point is to say, first of all, the two issues that were mentioned, we agree upon. We want to protect our borders. That's a joint interest. We're already doing it with our CBSA, our agents on the Canadian side and U.S. side. Interdicting fentanyl, obviously we want to do the same thing. So my point is that let's double down on both things that we want to do together, because it's in our mutual interest to do that. And at the same time, let's make sure that we put forward all the things that we can do strategically on the energy side, on critical minerals, on semiconductors. That is really the thing that we're going to put forward, and engaging with the future Trump administration, as we always do.
What does that mean? Does that mean more funding into Canadian industries that are strategic? Does it mean compensatory funding for
I don't think we're there yet. Like I said, being methodical is that you take it step by step. We have engaged with our U.S. partners. We will continue to engage with our U.S. partners, but let's take it step by step. I think we should not jump to any conclusion. Like I said, whatever President-elect Trump says you should take seriously. We've seen that before. On the other end, our job, and that's what we're doing already, is to make sure that everyone around us understands, for example, on the border, everything that we're doing. We had, as you know, a cabinet committee yesterday, and we're constantly updating our posture to make sure that we address all the issues that are coming. And therefore, it's going to be for us to present that, and at the same time look at the opportunities so that we strengthen the North American Economic Zone, because that's in both parties' best interest. At the same time that we address issue around security and border, and that's something we want to do on both sides.
Are you talking about the effects tariffs would have on small businesses?
Again, we have a very strong relationship with the U.S., and I know that Minister Freeland and a few of my colleagues will continue to work diligently to negotiate with the U.S. Thank you.
And what are you going to be doing to help small businesses have confidence in the government right now with this threat?
Again, so I just want to reinforce that we have a very strong relationship with the U.S., whether that's through trade and many different supports that we have to help small businesses, and we're going to continue to work with them. And of course, Minister Freeland, Minister Joly, and Minister LeBlanc will continue to work with our U.S. partners.
But for small businesses who export to the U.S., how should they? So what are you telling businesses in Quebec to make sure that they still have confidence given these threats from Trump?
I would say, I hear the preoccupation and the worry, but I'm very confident that we are in a government that was there at the first administration, and I'm confident that we can, in the next few months, have the negotiations we need. But I think right now what I'm hearing from businesses is that the tax credit, the tax break we're giving, it's really good for business in Quebec.
comment on déciderait qui a un
Ben, c'est à la ville
permis
de
ou se le
décider.
fait refuser?
C'est à la ville de décider selon les critères qui seraient établis par la ville. C'est très bien connu, ce genre de mécanisme.
Donc, vous iriez selon la taille ou selon
Ben,
la
ça,
cause?
non. Selon la cause, on parle de la liberté
Ben,
d'expression.
c'est ce qui me semble, mais c'est pour ça que je vais préciser
Non,
votre
on parle de la
pensée.
taille puis de la capacité de gérer une manifestation qui est légale. C'est une idée, là. C'est une
Qu'elle
idée
n'aurait
que
pas
je-
dû déborder, en fait.
Ben, on a vu avec ces manifestations en particulier des débordements à l'extrême. C'est inacceptable.
Fait que comme pendant les carrés rouges où il fallait prévenir les autorités de donner un trajet, tout ça.
Ben, vous réfléchissez à quelque chose qui vient à loin, là, mais... Oui, mais juste en réalité, je pense qu'il faut, sur tous les plans, municipal, provincial, fédéral, avoir une meilleure gestion de ce genre d'événement, parce que là, c'est assez stressé. Ben, en partie, il y a d'autres moyens. La police doit sévir, évidemment. Les gens qui brisent des choses, qui causent la violence, doivent être traduits en justice.
President Trump last night seemed to lump Canada and Mexico together when it comes to the issue of illegal immigration. Do you think that's fair?
Well, I think you know as well as anyone else that it isn't, and we have different challenges with the United States than Mexico has. It was his social media post and decision to do it. It's something we need to take quite seriously in Canada. It is quite clear as well that when we talk about the flow of migrants, which we're seeming to forget in this frenzy, it goes it's a two-way street. We have challenges with what is coming into Canada on various levels, and I think that needs to be addressed in a rational fashion. When we talk about the north-south flow of migrants, it really isn't as much, obviously, as what's happening in Mexico. It's about a heavy weekend on the Mexican border on a yearly basis. Doesn't mean we don't take it seriously, and there's work to be done here to make sure that people aren't going in irregularly into the U.S. And we would ask the same of the Americans. So sit down with them when we get the opportunity, work on our common plans, and make sure that we do have a secure border.
But President Trump puts off these tweets. He seems like he's decided. You know, he doesn't seem to have waited for the details and the facts. Do you worry about having a rational conversation on this?
Well, I think in the interest of Canada and the U.S., we'll have to have a rational one. We'll have to sit down. He's allowed to tweet just like I'm allowed to tweet. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't want to damage the U.S. economy, if the severe impact that this could have on the Canadian economy needs to be completely mitigated for, we actually have to sit down and have a good conversation about the flow of goods, the flow of people between our borders.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.